everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Politically Incorrect Podcast. I'm Jim Williams, along with my wingman here, co-host Dan Maduri. Detroit, the Motor City, where, if you are a boxing fan, you're very well aware, that is the home to Tom the Hitman Hearns. Thomas the Hitman Hearns was a phenomenal fighter in the 80s and early 90s. And last night, and the night before, Wednesday and Thursday nights, at the beautiful Fox Theater in downtown, Daniel, we saw what the Hitman might have called, a very good battle royale. I think we saw boxing on night one and probably saw closer to WrestleMania on night two.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I mean, I thought, I was actually thinking to myself, this is why we need to start kind of whittling it down and maybe getting to it sooner rather than later. I mean, I realize that it just became August 1st, but the fact of the matter is that, there's frankly too many candidates. Over 12 of them have no shot whatsoever. Another 5 are long shots. And then the last 3 are just going to be the ones really kind of battling it out and trying not to do the missteps that can just upend their entire campaign. So, you just kind of look at that and say, so why are we sitting here and subjecting ourselves to not 1, but 2 nights, 10 the first night, 10 the second night? It just doesn't really make sense to me. I'm just not there. And I feel like the American public's just not there either, because you constantly see them talking about the nonsense, right? The nonsense. Like, what is on Pete Buttigieg's forehead? Like, oh, did Joe Biden actually call Kamala Harris kid? And then we find out when they went up and got caught on a hot mic saying, "Go easy on me, kid," kind of being like the jovial Joe, but yet everyone's picking that apart, saying, "Oh, she's so angry about that. There's no way she appreciated that. There's no way she maybe she didn't care. Maybe it was no big deal. Maybe she just that's 76, 77-year-old Joe Biden just being Joe Biden. I mean, why we pick it all apart because there's no substance in it."
Right. This is the same guy who, on the day that the Obamacare finally passed, stepped up to the mic with the president and said, "Hey, this is a fucking big deal." And on a hot mic, so.
Yeah.
So, it's Joe Biden. Joe's been like that since the 1970s.
He's been exactly like that since the 1970s. And not only that, but he also, when you have seen him in the course of his track record, if they want to liken that to some sort of, mild racism, I mean, he said things in the past that were far more racist than that. I mean, the whole conversation about talking about Barack Obama being a well-dressed, smart, articulate, good-looking black man, when he said something like that was rare. I mean, that's far more racist than him saying, "Go easy on me, kid." I mean, it's like just stop picking apart the simplistic. Maybe the guy, like a grandfather, and that's about his age, a grandfather, is just happy to see a young, invigorated woman who he knows is his best challenger on the stage tonight, and he's just chumming it up with her. Maybe that's all it is.
Well, sometimes, when you walk up there and you're in a campaign, right? And it's going to get ugly. You know it. So what do? You walk up to the person and you say to them, just like Joe did, just like, "Hey, I know it's going to be tough, but try to keep some of the knives in the drawer. Let's don't put them all out." So it's a joke. I mean, it's a total joke. And it's not like he's going to disarm her if, she's not going to stop just because Joe says, "Go easy on me, kid." But it's more of a,
also too, Jim,
what are you going to say? What are you going to say? It's not like he's not met this woman.
Yeah, it's not like he just didn't shake her hand. It's not like he turned his back on her. It's not like he handed her his keys and said, "Go get my car." I mean, he just said, "Go easy on me, kid." I mean, it's like, come on. And you know what it kind of goes down to? It goes down to the fact that, these debates have become far more of a form of entertainment than they actually have been about substance. I mean, you can just feel it. When I was watching it last night, one of the main takeaways I took was just basically this idea of, why does it feel like I'm watching a sporting event? I mean, why does it feel that way? Well, from ways that CNN handled the ins and outs, the way that it started like 10, 15 minutes late. I mean, how about do the introductions at like 7:50 so the actual debate can start at 8 o'clock? Why do we have like the little drummer boy coming out and then like slowly meandering off while he's beating war drums right before the candidates get behind their podium? I mean, it just feels more like it is about the theatrics, which kind of lulls people to sleep and puts them into a position where they're not actually focused on what is important, and they're looking for that one-line burn or that hot mic incident in which they can really grab onto, or the fly that Pete Buttigieg apparently, with his ninja-like hand, slapped against his forehead during a commercial break. It's like what? It's like what? What are we doing here?
Also, to your point, you get these pundits afterwards, which are basically saying that are breaking this down like a NFL coach might be breaking down game film and talking about body language and talking about, well, look at the scowl that person had during this or that, or what was he doing when this person was doing that. And it's like, wait. And like, to your point also about the CNN, thing, it was kind of like, okay, it's like I'm watching an NFL game, right? I need the first pitch, or baseball actually baseball's closer. You get, 7 o'clock comes, the first pitch doesn't come till 7:10. What do they do it for 10 minutes? Okay, they can't find their way to the field. It's like, of course, that's because you want to get all the commercials in and all that other stuff. Okay, so then it ends at 15 minutes or so before 11 o'clock. So what happens? MSNBC, Fox, everybody else has to scramble in the middle of a 10 o'clock program to try to, not stumble over each other to get to the set to do debate replay before the people even get to the spin room. So it's a bit odd, but at present, at least as things go, because they've changed the rules a bit, it looks more and more like it's going to be closer, the debate, which is coming after Labor Day. And thank you for not doing a debate in August. Just thank you all. The one coming in September is likely to have closer to just 10 or 11 people and all on one night. So that, I think, should help. So let's talk, take a moment, go back in time to Wednesday night. And Bernie and Elizabeth were kind of not pounding on each other, but in some regards doing more kumbaya stuff than taking on each other.
Yeah, I think that was all kind of hashed out strategy prior. I mean, they're clearly, the most progressive people up there. They're clearly the front runners up there, and they're clearly trying to leave the door open to, the possibilities of what might be if one of them does in fact get through the primary, and then frankly, they just want to, why not just beat up on the Rep Ryans of the world? Why not just beat up on the John Delaney's of the world? I mean, it makes no sense for them to attack each other right now, because frankly, they're not each other's competition. Their competition was on the stage last night with Biden. So it's just like, you kind of look at that and Biden and Harris. So you kind of look at that and it just kind of makes sense. The dynamics make sense because they're just going to be out there trying to again show that they've got some fire, that they've got some brimstone, and that they're looking forward to push themselves out there in order to keep themselves, in the position that they're in, because frankly, they're not playing. They realize that debate was the warm-up act.
I thought that on Wednesday night, you just mentioned Tim Ryan, the congressman from Ohio. I thought of the lower tier candidates, that Tim Ryan was really good at synthesizing the argument against Bernie and Elizabeth Warren as saying, people are very, very, very hesitant, would be the polite way of putting it, in the Midwest or anywhere for that matter, to be promised something that's free. because nothing ever ends up being free. And he was, I thought he did a very nice job with not as much time as both Warren and Sanders had to synthesize that argument against Warren and Sanders down to about 2.5 minutes of common sense, which I thought was, quite effective. And then I thought Buttigieg had one of the great lines out of the night, which was when they came to him, they were talking about, do you fear that the Democratic Party is moving too far to the left? And Buttigieg said, well, tell you what. He said, if Bernie or Elizabeth Warren, or any, progressive, quote unquote, considered progressive, goes, then the Republicans are going to brand us as being, socialists. Because if we go to the center, they're going to brand us as socialists. So he says, it doesn't matter what happens, we're still going to get branded as socialists. So, he was trying to bring, I thought 2 or 3 points during the night that Buttigieg was quite good at. Beto O'Rourke did a little bit more climbing back. Go ahead.
I like that point. And a quick correction. I mean, you said Wednesday night, and I went ahead and started talking about Tuesday night debate. So we're actually talking about the Tuesday night debate, not the Wednesday night debate. But
today's Thursday. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right.
So that was my fault. I'm the
Don't
one
mind me.
Right,
Don't mind me, folks. It's been a long 48 hours.
We'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's amazing to me because I like that. I like that Buttigieg point of, it doesn't matter what we say, we're going to be branded as socialists. I thought that was reasonable. I thought that it was articulate. I thought that was logical. It also, though, I think it was kind of a veiled shot at the Bernie Sanders of the world. I think it was a veiled shot at the AOCs of the world. I think it was basically like, you guys have swallowed our party whole with your nonsense, with your unelectable nonsense. And why he didn't vocalize it and put, flame to fire the way that Tim Ryan did, I thought that it was much more of a prudent point that if people were really paying attention, they got what Buttigieg was saying, which was basically like, Bernie, you and AOC and the squad have drifted us into a very difficult point in area and arena. And it's going to be difficult for us to get out of that. And I think that's why he was trying to own it, but I think he was also a veiled shot at Bernie. What do you think?
Yeah, well, no, I think clearly. I thought it was funny when Bernie, when he challenged Bernie on a point having to do with his, the Medicare for all situation, and he was challenging him on the costs of it. And Bernie starts waving his hands and and yelling, which is, that's just Bernie. Okay, he would do that he'd do that in a safe way. So don't it's just the way he is. Anyway, and Buttigieg had the great line. He goes, "Bernie, I'm standing right here. You don't have to yell." And it was, again, it was a bit of levity, but at the same time, he was making the point that, that yes, Elizabeth Warren had that line having to do with, if you're not here to be an agent of change, why even run, right?
Yeah, when she was stalking and attacking Delaney, which didn't you find it kind of interesting? And maybe this is my more, moderate Democrat views coming forth, but did you think it was kind of interesting that, she basically raked Delaney over the coals for being professionally successful? I just don't know how that plays. I certainly don't know how that plays in the Democratic base. I know that the Democratic base, hardworking blue collar individuals, but for raking somebody over the coals for not being a person who was gifted everything, that actually went out there and worked and made it work and did something good. Granted, I think Delaney's a clown. I think he should have been out a long time ago. Right. But why are we attacking him for his professional success when they're also up there trying to talk about what the American dream is and what it represents and all these things. Like, it's like, which one is it? Are we supporting the American dream? Are we applauding the American dream? Are we trying to reinvigor and hit the American dream with an adrenaline shot? Or are we attacking a person who represents the American dream? Which one is it?
I don't know. It was kind of weird. I thought that was it was uncalled for because, I mean, Delaney, like him, dislike him, doesn't matter. He's not going to be around.
He doesn't matter.
Right.
He
so
doesn't matter. That's why I didn't get that whole interaction.
Go ahead, beat up. If you, that's like, seriously, there was no reason to go after him. And again, he was very clear about, what he's done. It's not like the guy, is he's a self-made, millionaire and successful at what he did.
He doesn't. And what the other thing is, Jim? It's that he is the right type of wealthy person. He doesn't have this unquenchable thirst for greed like you see some of these billionaires out there, where it's just more. How big can we get? How large can we dream? Who cares what our workforce gets paid? Who cares if we don't give them good benefits or a place to live? Who cares about anything else? It's just about more. And it's like these evil little Pac-Mans just like gobbling up all the resources and wealth of the entire country, where it's like the top 8 wealthiest people in the world own more than like 60% of the entire population. I mean, it's not like he's doing that. He made his money. He realized his life was set, that his kids' lives were set. Every person in his family tree's life was going to be set. He's worth about $65 million. And he said, you know what? I'm going to give back and I'm going to run for office. That's what I'm going to do. I think I have leadership to add. I think I've got good qualities to go forth with. He's not like the quintessential greed Gordon Gekko guy who you just love to hate because it's like, screw that guy, Gordon Gekko. You don't get there with the lady. He's like the soft-spoken, weird-looking bald guy who people have talked about and likened to that character from King of the Hill, which I never watched that show, but I heard it was decent. And it's like, he's the person you should. He's the person you should be applauding. Is my point. Not the person you should be attacking. You should be attacking the other people like the Zuckerbergs of the world. Right.
No. Look. Delaney's been very philanthropic. He was a congressman from Maryland. I mean, he definitely had strong knowledge of the issues, and he had a point. He may not be around long, but at least listen to him. But Warren on night one was in full-on flamethrower mode, and for that part, I think that's why so many perceived that she had the night, and she's a younger, perhaps more electable version of Bernie, and Bernie tried to make
I love how she's a younger version of Bernie, yet she's still in her 70s. And one of my favorite things to talk to people about was always about like Elizabeth Warren, her age compared to Hillary Clinton, because people would always tell me how young and fresh and relevant Elizabeth Warren was compared to Hillary Clinton, which if my memory serves me correctly, they're only like a year or two apart in age.
Yeah.
They're right there. It's just that Hillary's been in the limelight and people have known her for 30 plus years, where Warren really kind of exploded on the scene back in 2010 or so. So, it's interesting when you think about that. I mean, she's still up there in age.
Oh, it's she's not the youngest person on the dais, and that was just that. But number one, got to say, it was a pretty intense thing. Tell you what, we'll talk about part two, the second night of this one more, as I said before. The debate night one, more of a boxing match. Debate night two, more of WrestleMania. We'll continue with Dan Maduri and myself here on the Politically Incorrect Podcast after these words. Hey, everybody, let me tell you about my friends at Warby Parker. Now, they were founded with a rebellious spirit and a lofty goal to create boutique quality eyewear at a revolutionary price. It was a collaborative effort between four close friends. Warby Parker was conceived as an alternative to overpriced and bland eyewear that's available out there today. Now, prescription eyewear shouldn't cost you more than a plane ticket or a brand new iPhone. By circumventing traditional channels and engaging with customers directly through their website and the retail stores, Warby Parker has been able to provide high quality, good looking prescription eyewear at a fraction of the price. Now, Warby Parker's aesthetic is vintage inspired with contemporary twist. Every pair is custom fit with anti-reflective polycarbonate prescription lenses. Available exclusively through the Warby Parker website at retail stores, glasses start at $95, including prescription lenses. And those lenses, by the way, include anti-glare and anti-scratch coating. Now, if you need blue light filtering for those lenses, they are also available at Warby Parker. Now, I've personally experienced. Here's what happened, okay? I needed a new pair of glasses. So I went to Warby Parker's website. Now, I got to tell you, there is a tremendous amount of fantastic information about all kinds of glasses there. Whether you're a man, a woman, if you want sunglasses, it's all there. So you're at the website, and they also have a short test. Now, the short test gives you an opportunity to see what style of glasses looks best on your face by simply taking a short test. Doesn't take more than 5 minutes, okay? Once I did that, I then found out about the game changer, folks. The game changer is this. It's a free home try-on program. You order 5 pairs of glasses. You try them for 5 days. There's no obligation to buy anything. It ships to your house for free. And inside the box is included a prepaid return shipping label so you can send those 5 glasses back after you've given them a try. So after I took my little test, I decided, okay, I'm going to go and find 5 glasses, frames that I think would look good. And let's see what happens. So I went on. Now, like some websites, as I said before, they can be a nightmare. That is not the case with Warby Parker. The website, as I said before, tons of information, but very user-friendly and true to the style. So you know how you buy something on a website and it doesn't look anything when you get it like what you thought you purchased on the website. That is, again, not the case with Warby Parker. I went through and picked 5 frames that I thought would look good on my face. When the box showed up, I opened the box up and all 5 of the pairs of glasses looked exactly as they did on the website. So that was cool. Now, rather than, when you're out looking at glasses in some of these stores, there's just walls and walls and walls and walls and walls of different frames, and it's overwhelming. And you pick something, you put them on, you give them to them, and you buy it. And you realize it later, it's okay, but it's not exactly what I wanted. But hey, that's the way it is. It's not the way it is. If you do what I'm telling you with Warby Parker and do like I did and get those 5 pairs of glasses sent to your house and you have 5 days to look at them, what happens is this. I started off with 5. I whittled it down to 3. I took the 3, I whittled it down to 1 and picked out the perfect frame for me. Now, I didn't do that by myself. I had help. Because I had that 5 days and those 5 different frames, I was able to get input from my family, my friends, my coworkers. I was able to wear them, around a little bit, to look at them, to be able to get a feel for what they were like. And obviously they didn't have my prescription in it, but I was able to look at them in the mirror and even try on what do they look like with a suit or with a polo shirt or something like that. You're actually able to look at them in different ways that you can never do when you're rushed out, at a mall setting. Okay. So that was number 1. Finally, I picked out, as I said, the ones that I felt were perfect for me. I went to the website. I went ahead and ordered the glasses. It was an easy process. I uploaded my prescription. Again, very simple. They also have a very cool camera, which allows you to take a picture, which then goes to them, which gives them the opportunity to perfectly fit these glasses to you. And then about a week later, bingo, the glasses show up. They are perfect. I have never in my life had a pair of glasses that looked better, that were more comfortable, or that I could see clearer from than these Warby Parker glasses. Absolutely 100% easy done. So here's what I want you to do, okay? I want you to take that home try-on program, order the 5 pairs of glasses, try them on for 5 days. Again, no obligation to buy. They ship free. There's a prepaid return shipping label, easy to do. Here's what I want you to do. Go to warbyparker.com/my last name Williams to order your free try-on kit today, all right? Again, that's Warby Parker, WARBYPARKER.com/WILLIAMS. Order your free home try-on today. You'll be glad you did. So just go to warbyparker.com/Williams. Try 5 pairs of glasses for 5 days. No obligation to buy. Shipping free. Prepaid return goes all the way back. Not a problem. You'll be glad you did. I guarantee you're going to find a pair of glasses that is going to be the best you've ever had. Okay? Try Warby Parker. Try it today. Thanks a lot for listening. Welcome back to the Politically Incorrect Podcast. I'm Jim Williams with my partner, Dan Maduri. We're talking the Democratic presidential candidates debate. Detroit, Michigan, night 2. Joe Biden with a target on his back approximately the size of Idaho. It was pretty big. Now you had a great, in our little pre-show prep, you had a great visual for those people who are movie lovers. Go forth and use it, my friend.
For those that are movie lovers like me, last night's debate, watching it unfold and watch everybody just attack Jovial Joe. I mean, it really reminded me of the John Wick 2 movie trailer or movie poster, the one where it's just Keanu Reeves' head, and then there's like 10,000 guns circling his head, and there's all these hands holding the guns, and they're all pointed at his head because, of course, he's a wanted man in the second movie. And it kind of reminds me of that. I mean, it's just like, except for Keanu Reeves' head, you put Joe Biden's head in there, and that's exactly what took place last night, which, I think that he handled himself well. I think he did kind of wear down over the course of the night, which is not something you want to see if you're Biden's people, especially in the sense that, age is going to be a big point of his campaign and of his critics. And if you're wearing down in a 90-minute, 2-hour debate, what are you going to be doing when you're president of the United States and, you're working 20 hours a day? It's just like, how does that work? If you're wearing down during that, are you going to wear down when you get that, 3 or 4 a.m. phone call? And it just kind of, again, reinforces that idea that I've heard a lot of people talk about, which is basically like, this is why he missed his window and this is why he should have run in 2016 rather than 2020.
Yeah, I mean, Joe did a much better job. It's hard to believe that he could do worse than the first one. But he did do some damage in so much as he landed his punches on both Booker and Harris. That allowed
he seemed like he had some fight. He seemed like he had some fight.
And basically, when Mayor de Blasio from New York, who proved last night without any doubt that his career in politics should be the mayor of New York City, and no further. Kept pushing him on.
Yeah, well, it's not a bad career. I mean, I've always said that the mayor of New York City is the second most important political position in the entire country behind the president of the United States. But I mean, he's been an abomination as a mayor. The majority of his constituents can't stand him. Even Democrats that I know and that are very influential up there, they can't stand him. And it's just like he's just got that brand of just being incompetent. And why would you run for president? I guess because you're mayor of New York City. There's no place else to go. You're more powerful than the governor of New York State. So I guess you just have to run for president if you want to stay in the political world. But I mean, I can't imagine him. It's not like he can parlay this into a cabinet seat. I mean, his next move is going to be like NYU dean of
Yeah.
the School of Politics or something. I mean, his
Yeah.
next move is academia. It's going to be nowhere in D.C. It's going to be nowhere across the political spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
He's done with.
Plus, he's too old to play power forward for the Knicks. So
yeah.
So there's
But
that.
Going back to what you're saying, I mean, it was kind of, what did you think between when you thought about Biden's first debate performance towards the second debate performance? I mean, it was good because it seemed like he had more fight and more bite in him the second one. The first one, kind of thinking back on the first one since doing the second one, it's almost like he was just, I wouldn't say happy to be there, but he thought that people were going to be up there just kissing his rings and thought that he'd be able to just coast through the debate rather than, I won't say be prepared because I'm sure he was prepared, but it just seemed like he wasn't 100% in it, vested in it, ready for it, and he thought that it would just be a treading water coast job rather than one that he actually had to go fight for.
Well, I think in talking to some of his people prior, after the debate in Miami, prior to the debate in Detroit, they felt that Joe was under the impression that the debate was going to be a civil contest, that nobody was going to attack anybody. They were just going to debate ideas. And so he got basically blindsided. And I'm not saying that Kamala Harris blindsided him. She threw a legitimate punch at something that he, with the busing situation, she threw a legitimate punch and he wasn't ready for it. And I don't think he thought that was coming. And so,
but I mean, he's been around long enough,
too.
and obviously he's been around a long, long time. So not that he's been around long enough, but I mean, he should get it. I mean, every debate they go in there saying, "Oh, it's going to be a cordial one," until it's not. And frankly, if he thought that to the point that he was not ready and was staggered when Kamala went after him, that goes back to who's getting your information for you. Why are you trusting that? He sounds ill-informed. I mean, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like he's ill-informed, and frankly, he should have just, instead of canvassing and putting out feelers and back channeling with other campaigns to see, like, you're not going to attack me, right? We're just going to go up there and have conversation, right? He should have just relied on his historical knowledge of you're fighting for the most important seat in politics. Everybody up there really wants to be in that position, and so the haymakers are going to fly. I mean, they're just going to.
Yep. Well, last night, they went back there to the busing issue, and I thought, they both were kind of playing back and forth off of it. And I thought Colorado Senator Michael Bennet, who could very well be the best and most well prepared to play the center lane, had a great line when he talked about the whole thing about the problem is the schools are just as segregated now as they were 50 years ago. And he urged new focus on improving the schools and serving the close correlation between school dropouts and prison incarceration. And he made such, he connected the dots in a very easy to understand way. And I thought that, he said, look, we've been fighting this thing for 50 years. It didn't stop with these two guys. And I thought that was a very solid point of many solid points that Bennett made throughout the night, trying, and again, telling people that that the Medicare for all concept just isn't going to fly because of cost. And the second thing, which I think was a very important point that Bennett brought out, was that it took every bit of political capital that President Obama had to carry the ACA across the finish line. And
I mean, his presidency was effectively over at that moment.
Right.
It was done.
And so the idea that Democrats want to blow up the ACA and start all over again is crazy, because even the Republicans, 2 weeks after President Trump was elected, there's the Republicans and the Democrats always have a retreat, a weekend retreat, where they go off and they plan what they're going to plan for the first 100 days. And in Philadelphia, Frank Luntz, who's a famous pollster and someone who has been very instrumental in much of what's gone on in the political polls for the Republicans, kind of came out with, he came out with the idea of, let's work on how best to repair the ACA because it's popular, and we could use that as our way of getting through and winning the healthcare back. Well, so many people were so focused on repealing it that they just dismissed Luntz entirely. It was a huge mistake on their part, because it became far more popular as the days went by. And so anyway.
One of the two things I think that is really being missed right now in the Democratic Party, and it was a prudent point, I forget who actually made it, but the point was basically something around the lines of, hey, Democrats, you represent union workers, or the core of your base, and if you do Medicare for all, union workers that pay little to no premiums for health care insurance, all that will be taken away from them when you go for Medicare for all, and they'll end up having to deal with higher taxes and higher bills when it comes to health care, and that is your base. So why would anybody do that, and why would anybody vote for that? The other point that I think that the Democrats are kind of missing is they can't really seem to get their minds around and get a electable message across when it comes to immigration. I mean, they just can't. I mean, Biden last night basically saying people should, wait in line to get in our country, and we should cherry pick, and we should be people who have PhDs. We should bring them across first in order to bolster our economic competitiveness. The fact that was completely and utterly rejected by everybody on the dais, and even Cory Booker ended up going on the offensive about that, saying, it just drives me insane. You're putting immigrants against immigrants. It's like, but it's like, this is the state of the country, right? I mean, it goes back to the analogy I think I've used with you in the past, Jim. Once you become the University of Alabama and you've won 5 out of the last, 7 or 10 national championships, you don't take everybody and anybody into the program. You become more selective, and you find the blue chippers, and you find people who have tremendous value to you and to your modern day economy and your modern day jobs. And that's who you bring in first and foremost. Not to say you don't have walk-ons, not to say you don't have gray shirts. I mean, of course you're going to do all that still to fill out your roster. But you don't let them in first. First, you go after the 5-star prospect so that they don't go to London, so they don't go to Paris, so they don't go to Singapore and end up totally transforming that country or those cities, I should say, and those companies within those cities, they come to yours instead. So I think they've got two major issues there. One, Medicare for all will hurt union workers when it comes to dollars in their pockets and take money directly out of their pockets. And two, they still, after all of this time since the midterms, they don't know what to say on immigration. They still do not know what to say on immigration.
Well, again, two things. One, we had Bennett once again bringing up the point that he was part of the Gang of Eight. Marco Rubio was part of the Gang of Eight. It was a bipartisan group. They came up with a legitimate and very, very solid comprehensive immigration plan. If you took that same bill today, it still would work. And I think that, again, that's where Bennett was trying to say it's not like we have to reinvent the wheel. We have that information. Now, if you go back and, Castro, who of course was the HUD director under Obama, Castro's thing was basically saying, wait a minute, what's happening here? And he nuanced it a bit. He owned the fact that during the administration, there were some things they didn't do right. And the progressives were killing Obama on this during that time. It's just basically by pushing and utilizing some nuances in the actual legal system, you are penalizing people. So his concept of taking what Bennett was talking about was what in essence was a comprehensive plan, and then also adding to that plan Castro's concept of utilizing the laws, and then doing what in essence was a Marshall Plan, like was done after World War II, where you go and you invest money in helping these countries in Central America to be more better run and try to help them get back on their feet. I think that is part of a comprehensive plan that makes a lot of sense, because you then approach all of the immigration issues at one time, while at the same time keeping the legalities in place and also propping up countries where the vast majority of these folks who are coming through the southern border come from. So if you take two or three of the plans and craft them together, you got a plan. But, just floating stuff out there isn't necessarily the wisest tack to take.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see right now, out of the gang of 8, how many of those 8 people would jump back on and be a part of that to try to push it back through. I know Marco Rubio would not want to be a part of that ever again. I know that he thinks that was one of the great debacles of his career, and he got raked over the coals by the Florida GOP for doing that.
Well, see, that's where statesmanship should be. Statesmanship, when you do something that's right and history proves it, you may not be there anymore, but I remember something. This is a Florida thing, folks, so if you're not from Florida, listen to it just for a second. Indulge me. Hayden Burns in the 1960s was the governor of the state of Florida. Now, Hayden Burns had a decision to make, and that was whether to sell land to Walt Disney to build a theme park, or whether to sell land to Minute Maid to expand what they already had in a massive amount of agricultural land, which they were going to plant orange trees on and become, bigger orange producers. Well, at the end of the day, the governor, Hayden Burns, decided to side with a theme park over an orange grove. Hayden Burns was roasted for that. As a matter of fact, in the 1968 election for governor, Florida had 100 years of Democratic rule in the state. Burns was bounced out by Claude Kirk in 1986. In 1972, they opened Disney World. In 1995, they dedicated a road. It's a small road coming into Disney. If you come into Disney on that road and you look up, you'll see its name is Hayden Burns Boulevard. Hayden Burns' vision of what Disney was going to do. If Disney didn't get Orlando, he was going up to North Carolina and take a spot somewhere outside of Charlotte. So Burns felt, this is all land that, if he can do what he says he can do with it, it's going to be something. So sometimes if you hold to your vision and hold to your conviction, history proves you right. And, I don't know if the Gang of Eights bill would revolutionize immigration. I know it would improve it, and whether or not, whether it's, the way things are these days, whether it's Marco Rubio on the Republican side or some of the guys on the Democratic side, whether they could cobble that thing together again and do it again, I have no idea. But it wasn't a bad idea. It was just it hit at the wrong time politically, and that's why I think a lot of people ran away from it.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I think it's all about timing, as you mentioned. It's all about timing, and the fact that it was when it was, and it was definitely very bold. And I think people were kind of shying away from the bold at that point in time because of the ACA. So I think it put itself in a position where it just in purgatory up there in DC.
Right. Well, it's one of those things where, like I said, we are not, or let me rephrase that. We no longer seem to be a country who wants to do big things unless one party gets all the credit for it. And that's just, that's no way to run government, and it's certainly no way to get legislation passed. So, all right.
I absolutely agree with that.
Let's say who from the polls coming up, because the polls will come up this weekend. Give me your top 5 of the Democrats coming out of these last 2 debates.
Based on performance or based on where they're going to be?
Based on where you think the polls will show them.
I think that you're going to see I think you'll see pretty much it remain stagnant. I think you'll see Biden come in at number 1. I think Warren will be there right at number 2. I think Sanders or Harris will be number 3, and I think Buttigieg will be number 5, depending on where Harris and Sanders kind of shake out. I will mention that I think that Bullock will climb. I don't think it'll be an astronomical climb, but I think he will climb because he's got no place to go but up. So I think that you'll see a little pop when it comes to how people see him, how they view him, and where he resides in the polls. But whether that's in the top 10 or whether that's in the top 15 or whether that's 18, 19 remains to be seen.
I agree. I think that that the top 5 are going to stay. The top 5 it'll be interesting to see if Cory Booker got any bounce out of this.
There's just too many people for anyone to get a real bounce out of it. So if I was any of those candidates, like the Bookers or the Buttigiegs of the world, what I would be doing is I'd be focusing everything on staying power and longevity, which means fundraising. That'd be my number 1 focus, because right now debates mean nothing because there are 20 people out there. Make sure you're prepared. Make sure you have a good one-liner here or there. Make sure you don't have a dead fly on your forehead. And then just get me to October, November, December, the turn of the year, and then that's when people are really going to figure out who's who and what's what.
Another thing, let's do a little myth busting here. And a lot has been talked about, winning back the middle class. For those out there who, Donald Trump won the presidency by 77,000 votes. Okay, in his victory, if you add up Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, add them all together, they don't fill up University of Michigan Stadium, which seats 106,000 people. The new middle class. Let's start. I made the premise of the him winning back. Okay, if you're talking about white men, okay, Trump against Biden is up 25 points up on men without a college degree. White men with a college degree, he's up 17 points over Biden, and Biden is the guy who leads him in the national polls. The middle class is really women. It is blacks and Hispanics, and it is people between the ages of 21 and 42. That's your middle class. Not saying don't go after Joe Lunchbucket. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that if you're preaching that you're going to pry these guys back from Trump, you're not, number one. You might get a few. But the focus has to be on women, people of color, and the young voters. Because if you can get them out, then making up that 77,000 people is not going to be tough. But if you miss it by trying to go for something that you're not going to get, then you'll lose. Because demographics are destiny in politics. And the Democrats' destiny falls with women, it falls with people of color, and it falls with people under the age of 45. So there you go. We will see how these guys now hit the campaign trail, because they're not going to be on a debate stage for a while, and we'll see how they're trending in Iowa, and of course out there in New Hampshire, and then of course it's the down south of South Carolina, and we'll see. But it'll be interesting. Any final thoughts on the debate aspect?
Just that I can't wait for it to, as I said about 2 or 3 times throughout the course of this pod, I just can't wait for it to whittle itself down and get to the real 7 or 8 people that matter.
Right, and I think once that happens, I think the honing of the message will be good. I think that the debate will be over substance. It's impossible to get substance in 90 seconds. You just can't do it.
Yeah. I will also say this, even though she doesn't matter, and she should be cut out based on debate rules, I do hope they find a way just to let Williamson continue to be around, because she to me is she's a character, and I'm going to miss her when she's gone.
She scored high in that debate online. She was the number 1 Google search during that time, after the debate. She is an incredibly interesting woman. And I think that part of it is the fact that she's not a business person. She's not a politician. She's an author and a self-help person who actually has done a lot of good out in the Los Angeles area, and have a great line about, trust me, I used to live in Grosse Pointe, which is a beautiful part of the Detroit area, and said there would not be any problems in that regard of me having water issues. And she just kind of brought a bunch of different things to the forefront, and was she is entertaining, and she is thought-provoking, and she does kind of draw everybody back into line. If nothing else, she's like the teacher in the class that says, okay, that's silly, everybody else get back in line. So she is entertaining, and it'd be nice to see her hang around. I don't think that's going to happen, but it would be nice. Let's see. Let's tell you what, folks, we're going to take a break. Then Daniel and I will come back with some final thoughts. So you're listening to the Politically Incorrect Podcast. I'm Jim Williams with Dan Maduri. We'll be right back.
Life is about making decisions. At BMW I, we decided it was time to reinvent the car from the ground up, making sure we were open for truly innovative ideas. We decided that the car we wanted must be electric, and it should be made of extremely light and super strong carbon fiber. And finally, we decided to make it more intelligent and added our promise of incomparable driving pleasure. We made all these decisions to offer you a choice. The all-electric BMW i3.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Politically Incorrect Podcast. We kind of broke down the debate for you, so that's already done. We're exhausted. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Now, Dan, it's time for some final thoughts of what has been happening over the past week or two, and it doesn't have to be on debate. It can be on whatever you wish. So some final notes for you.
Just final notes is that it's amazing to me that Google had their their camp, their Google camp, their famous annual Google camp, in which they basically throw a $20 million party and get together and pretend like they're talking about climate change or other like income inequality, and you get all the stars. All the stars come out: Bradley Cooper, Leonardo DiCaprio, Prince Harry, Barack Obama. All the stars get flown in privately into like this remote ruined area of Italy, in which they sit around and pontificate about how they're champions of the world and how they are the key to changing the entire world and basically doing things that I guess the Illuminati does. And I just think to me I can never get my head around the idea of people talking about climate change when they all fly private. I mean, it's like one of the worst things you can do for the world. For when it comes to emissions, it's one of the worst things a person can do. And yet, every time you turn around, it's like Hollywood is just tone deaf to just that. I mean, I saw Chris Evans literally taking a selfie and wearing a shirt saying "Fight climate change." And if you look at the background, he's in a Gulfstream jet as he's like flying over the country. It's like these are the things, and these are the hypocritical things that people they're not just catching on to. I think that they're just adamant and enraged by it. I mean, it's just so hypocritical on a whole nother level. It gets flaunted into people's face. It is the worst sense of hubris that I think people ever feel. And it goes back to that "don't do as I do as I say." That I think in a world in which everybody's so egocentric and everyone's their own star, they don't want to hear that anymore. They don't want to hear that anymore. They don't want to be preached to. They don't want to be told that I'm better than you and I have to fly private. I'm Leo DiCaprio, and you know what happens to me if I don't fly private. Like, nobody wants to hear that. They don't want to hear that anymore. So it's like, if you either do what you say, practice what you preach, or just get out of my way. And I think it's kind of interesting to see that for whatever reason, they're just not interested in hearing what clearly the international public is saying when they host these grandioso type parties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let them wait in the TSA line like the rest of us. Mine has to do with President Trump's assault on Baltimore. I happen to live in Baltimore. Yes, by choice. And my wife is from Baltimore. A couple of things that, about the rat-infested hellhole that no one wants to live in. It happens to have one of the world-class medical centers in this country or anywhere in the world, in Johns Hopkins. It happens to have a inner harbor design that was the first of its kind. And if you live in Tampa or Jacksonville or many other places around the country, you have seen that template has been used, be it a river, be it in Jacksonville. I think it's on the St. John's, or if it's in that Bay Area up there. But anyway, it's up there and throughout the country. So there's that. There's Camden Yards, which was built in 1994, which was the first of the retro ballparks to come back. There are a number of corporations that have their homes here. And Elijah Cummings, who you picked on, is a guy who has done more in his livelihood to help people than the President of the United States has done in his life, let alone as President of the United States. And part of Elijah Cummings' district happens to be one of the most affluent parts of the country. And they came to Elijah Cummings' his defense. Look, Elijah Cummings doesn't need me to come to his defense. Does Baltimore have problems? Yes. But then again, so does pretty much every major metropolitan area in the country. Mr. President, if you're listening, you're the president of the United States, okay? You don't get to pick and choose who you're president of. There's 300 million people here, okay? If you feel that Baltimore is a place that needs help, help them. Come to Baltimore. Don't fly over. Don't go to fly in, drive across town, and go to an arena. Come to Baltimore. Go to Cleveland. Go to Tampa. Go to some of the places. Don't drive through them. Don't go to the, to the Yingling Dome and or the fairgrounds and not spend time in the city. Before you start throwing shade on places, again, you're the president of everybody in this country, people who like you and people who don't. So, again, if you're coming after somebody, if it's personal, then go after Elijah Cummings. He's a big guy. He can take care of himself. If you want to throw shade on Baltimore because it just happens to be where Elijah Cummings is, then you're going to have to take on a lot of people who actually like it here. And that's going to be something that you don't want to get into a fight with people from Baltimore, just like you don't want to get in a fight with people from Cleveland, like you don't want to get in a fight with people from Philly or Pittsburgh or any of these cities who are very proud of what they're like, even though they have their problems. So, sir, with due respect, lay off Baltimore until you can help Baltimore, okay? Until that time, you want to fight with Elijah Cummings, you know where he lives, you know what he does. Fight with him. Don't fight with the city. All right. That was my own personal point of privilege. I appreciate you listening for it. Meanwhile, if you have not yet become one of the over 35,000 people who've taken the time to subscribe to our podcast, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, it's simple. Go to the iTunes store, where we are part of the Apple Podcast family. And since we do not discriminate, you can go to Google Play because we're part of the Google Play Podcast family. You can find us on Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, as well as TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and, of course, YouTube, to name a few. If you can't find us, pull out the old Google machine, type in the Politically Incorrect Podcast, and hit the favorite button, please, or the subscribe button. And each week, a brand new edition of the podcast will come directly to your tablet, to your phone, or to both, okay? So, by all means, do us a favor. Dan and I have mortgages to pay, things to do. So, by all means, subscribe today. We appreciate it, okay? Well, Daniel, shameless plug time. Where can people find you on your social media?
Just Dan Maduri all across the board, like I like to say.
Okay, and it will be in the show box, so you can follow Dan. And you can find me at JW Media DC on Twitter. You can find me on JimWilliams200 on Instagram. And by all means, feel free at any time, if you have any questions, send them to our email box, which is JimWilliamsMedia. That's JimWilliamsMedia@gmail.com. And we will answer them, or hit us up on Twitter or Instagram, and we will do our best to solve the problems of the world one at a time. Okay? All right, until next week, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Politically Incorrect Podcast.